location. So everybody needs real estate one way or the other. There's a need for real estate, for every single person, be it rich, middle class, poor. Real estate is important, real estate is sacrosanct. And that's why I believe like everybody should have a knowledge of real estate. And that's why I love sharing my knowledge of real estate, across the world with different persons, from different backgrounds, and today, um, I'm really grateful that the Igbo community has given me an opportunity to share my experience and knowledge of Nigerian real estate with you. Big thanks to the organizers. Some of them I've met, like Mr. Big Sam and Judith, for trusting me to, educate members of this community on real estate investments in Nigeria. So what we're talking about today is um, investing in Nigerian real estate from diaspora, trends, opportunities, pitfalls to avoid. So apart from breaking down the different kinds of investments that you can do, we're also going to be looking at why is it important to invest in Nigerian real estate from diaspora? Because I mean, you don't stay in Nigeria, so what's the catch? How is Nigerian real estate lucrative for the person who stays in the diaspora? So these are the things that we'll be covering throughout this webinar, and also looking at the kind of investments that you can do that your money will not get missing and your money will appreciate over time, right? So, um, first of all, my name is Odinlo Aaron. I'm a Nigerian trained lawyer and co-founder of Caretaker, a rising real estate firm in Abuja. We experience advising on property deals exceeding 12 billion. I've been doing this for up to like 5 years now, half a decade. I help clients navigate complex transactions confidently. My passion is educating and inspiring investors on due diligence and smart real estate investments to help you own your dream property. So I know that there are like a lot of people here who have wanted to go into real estate at one particular point in time, but they didn't know which investment was right for them, if they were going to get scammed. I personally, one of the reasons why I'm passionate about educating the diaspora network about real estate is because I have families abroad, and a lot of them, before I got into real estate, became a lawyer, had invested in properties, hoping that by now, those properties would have matured and they would have had viable investments. But not one or two, a lot of them had lost their properties because due diligence was not done. They didn't have a knowledge of the industry and their money just went like that. So because this is close to home, I'm actually like passionate about educating investors on where to put their money, how to put their money, and how to position yourself in the market where they can get the best returns for their investments. So without further ado, I think I can go into the webinar proper now because like time is already fast spent. So why Nigeria, right? What is so important about investing in real estate? Why should you consider investing in Nigerian real estate? One of the things that you should know is that owning land is a source of pride and legacy. You know, it is apart from I'm going to give you logical reasons why real estate is one of the hottest things you can invest in now. But we cannot also um, push aside the fact that owning property is a thing of legacy, leaving something behind for your children, having land, a piece of the earth that you live in, having a piece of your country. Because Nigeria is a country you grew up in. No matter what, you'd never feel safer anywhere else than you feel safe in Nigeria. This is the country of your birth. So it is important for us to own properties in Nigeria as a country. It is important for us to have that sentimental piece of property where we say, I own this property in my country, and there's so many reasons why that is important. Another thing is biblical backing. The Bible, a lot of us are Christians here, but I'm using the Bible as a reference because it's one of the oldest books in the world. You understand? And a lot of the Bible has backing for real estate. So you see Genesis 1 2, where God says, go into the world, multiply, dominate. He was talking about dominating the earth, stewardship of the earth, having dominion over the earth. Proverbs 13:22 says, a good father, leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Real estate is a form of handing down inheritance to your family, to your children, to your cousins, to the generation that's to come, that this particular piece of property was owned by Mr. Chinedu, and then it has been passed down from generations to generations because he made a smart investment choice at a certain stage in his life. That way, the generation before you or after you can see your smart choices and feel like if I was handed over this property, when I came into the world, it's also important for me to hand over properties to the next generation that is coming. So this is why real estate is important. We also have um, Psalm 37:29, where God says, I will give you um, it says, the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell in it forever. So, land is not just an asset, it's a place of peace, blessing, and spiritual grounding. So, for instance, that if you have a property, nobody's going to come take it from you. The property is yours and yours alone. So, these are one of the things that you need to consider when buying real estate, why you should invest in Nigeria. Another thing is economical and political factors. Europe is a good place, the West is a good place. But when I talk to my friends, in Western countries, I always tell them there's nothing guaranteed. The world is enjoying a level of peace now, but peace isn't guaranteed in every country. Imagine people who had spent so many years in Ukraine a few years ago that felt like it wasn't important for them to own properties in Nigeria. Some of them were forced to come back to Nigeria for some time before they figured out where else they were going to go to. So imagine if they didn't have a property here, something to come back to, something to fall back to, or maybe something to even sell to start over again. You know, just imagine what would have happened to them, as the Ukrainian war went on. So before then, yes, there would be tensions with Ukraine and Russia, but nobody knew it was going to get to this instant, to this level where there'll be bombings and things like that. But people who were smart and invested in real estate had some form of cushion against that particular, thing. So right. Another thing is currency and economic advantage. When you have a euro going for 1,800 naira, this gives you an economical advantage that local investors do not have. That means you have the liquidity to invest in real estate. You have the liquidity to spend more than other local investors have to invest. So you have that and they don't have that, right? So this gives you an advantage. Real estate is also, a growing industry. The real estate market in Nigeria is experiencing rapid growth on all levels. This year, the real estate sector overtook the oil and gas sector as Nigeria's third largest sector during the country's GDP rebasing run by NBS. What does this mean? It means that in Nigeria, real estate is currently hotter, than oil and gas in contributing to the 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 this thing GDP, which is gross domestic product, I think. So the real estate market is actually pumping in more money, pumping in more money, contributing to the Nigerian economy than oil and gas. This gives you a pointer to where real estate is going to in Nigeria, in the sense that to enter into oil and gas, you need like billions of naira, you need to set up a company, have knowledge of oil and gas. But with real estate, you don't necessarily need to do that. What you need is basically liquidity, and you can start having a piece of the pie for yourself. So even if you're in Europe and you're looking, oh, what business can I invest in Nigeria to earn some money, in Nigeria that, would be reasonable, to me, yes, real estate is one of those things that you can consistently do to earn money. And in this particular webinar, I'll be teaching you how to do these things. Another thing is Africa is rising. A lot of people don't know this, or a lot of people, I know Africa has a lot of political unrest, but the truth is Africa is on the rise. This is a relatively young continent. Nigeria is a relatively young country, and there's so much opportunity for growth. Nigeria is the largest African country, over 220 million people living here. All those people are going to need houses. In fact, I dare say, as someone in Nigeria, living in Nigeria doing real estate, there is a housing deficit in this country currently. We have more people than we have houses in Nigeria, especially like in the urban areas. So if you can provide good housing solutions, you're sure to make money, one way or the other, because people need places to live. The population is relatively young. All these people who are young are going to need houses eventually, and again, Nigeria is becoming urbanized, at a rapid rate. You see infrastructure going up in so many places, not just even Abuja and Lagos. You look at places like Port Harcourt, places like Enugu, places like Ibadan. There's so much infrastructure development in all these places. Places like Delta States, infrastructure is going on daily, and these places are opening up to the world as the world becomes a global village, which makes Nigeria a good destination, for investments currently. So these are some of the reasons why you should consider Nigeria as, one of those places that you want to invest your money. You get one of those places you want to invest your money as someone living in diaspora, looking at real estate as a possible investment opportunity. So we have what's happening in Nigerian real estate, what is actually happening, what are the things, what are the trends that are happening in Nigerian real estate. We have urban growth. Abuja, Lagos, and Port Harcourt are seeing massive housing demand. Right now, there's a huge housing deficit in most urban cities. I said this before, creating opportunities for investors to create different kinds of housing solutions for the growing demand. You have the shortlet boom. So, if you live in Europe, you're familiar with shortlets and Airbnbs. There's a demand for shortlets in Nigeria currently because of the diaspora and business activities happening in urban areas, downtown areas. People are no longer people do no longer fancy coming to stay, long time in hotels where they would always have to buy food and be subject to like the hotel rules or whatever. People prefer their privacy. So you see shortlets becoming a key business model contributing to the real estate market in Nigeria. I think it was last year, December, where diaspora remittance for shortlets, there was this statistics, and in December alone, I think shortlets brought in over $20 million to the I think Lagos, real estate market. So these are things to actually look at. These are trends. Shortlets demands in cities driven by business travelers and diaspora visits. We have we have just give me a second. We have land rush and off-plan projects. So hotspots are rapidly developing. Early buyers gain competitive capital gains. So we have a lot of lands, especially in somewhere like I would say Enugu, Abuja, Port Harcourt. There's a lot of lands for grab currently, right? There's a lot of lands for grab currently. People are buying up lands in these places. Developments are coming, emerging areas, infrastructure to these emerging areas. So you see that areas are opening up that were once, fallow lands a few years ago, roads being constructed, major capital projects like train stations and the rest opening up certain areas. So there's a lot of land for grabs now because investors are looking at places that developments are going to hit in the next 2 to 3, 5 years, and they're going there to invest their money for maximum returns in a few years, right? And one of the things I'm doing in this webinar is opening your eye to these opportunities so you can know that, okay, whenever I have liquidity, these are the places or these are the kind of investments that I should be looking at. So we have digital shifts. There's a lot of things that are digital currently. You can see listings on Instagram. You can see listings on websites. Some companies are incorporating virtual tours, 3Ds, architectural models for you to see, what this property is going to look like when you invest in it. You get, and these digital school tools make it more, easier for you to invest in real estate from Diaspora. A few years ago, if you wanted to buy maybe a duplex from somebody, I will have to show you the architectural design just on paper. You might not be able to understand all that, but with 3D modeling, they can visualize the entire building, how the space is going to be, down to the furnitures inside, the the this thing, down to the furnitures inside the house for you to see. So the question now is, where should you put your money as an investor? You're somebody who wants to invest in Nigerian real estate and saying, oh, I'm interested in investing in Nigerian real estate. I think this is going to be a valuable thing to do. The question now is, where should you put your money as an investor? What are the things that you should look at, as possible outlets for you to find expression in the Nigerian markets. So in the Nigerian market, the first thing is for people who are looking at entering, for the long term, we're looking at land banking. So land banking is basically storing value, money in land, and leaving it to appreciate over some period of time, and then selling the land, for a higher plot or a higher price. Where you have buy plots in emerging areas like Abuja and Enugu, some offer up to 400 appreciation over 2 to 5 years. And when you see these numbers, you might think that this is a joke, but the truth about it is this is how Nigerian real estate is. There are certain places that you get to buy land, and in the next 5 to 6 years, you have experienced over 400, 300% ROI from this land. One of the things land banking does for you is that it hedges against inflation. So even if there's an inflation, rate in the economy, because of how the land appreciates, it actually hedges your money against inflation, such that if you deduct, the inflation rate in the economy, you still make some profits because of how you invested. And someone who is investing for the long term, some of these lands, they're not even looking at, cashing out on them in the next 5 years, 6 years. You're looking at maybe in the next 10 years, 15 years, depending on, your investment goals, whether they are short term, whether they are long term, so land banking is a good opportunity. I think last year I had a client who we bought a Mitama 2 property for in 2023 for about 15 million, right? In 2024, that same land was selling for about 120 million, and what happened, the Wike just came into power. I think at early the year was selling for about 75 million, but Wike just came and said, oh, everybody needs to pay for their ground rents and their R of Os and their C of Os, and those who don't pay for their C of Os will be revoked. Before people started bringing their paper out and the rest, and the market just went haywire. And something that was costing about 70 million at the beginning of the year, by the end of the year, currently in 2025, is about 120 million, 125 million. And also because of promises going into the development of Maitama 2, which is just adjacent Maitama in Abuja, it shows a lot of promise. People already know Maitama is a well-developed area. The funny thing about this land is you can't even inspect it. So usually when you buy this land, you just see the paper, you go to the land registry, you do verifications, and then you pay the money. All the properties I've sold in Maitama, so I've never been there. I've not even seen how the land looks at. That's what land banking is sometimes, because there's no real road. It's just bush. All there is a layout. But people who have foresight are buying those lands now. In the next few years, when development comes, government comes, creates the roads and everything, and somebody says a plot of land here is going for a 2,000 square meter land is going for 750 million. You're not going to blame them, because they came in a long time ago when people did not see the potential of those places. So that's why land banking is so important. Some of us have home states that we are from, Enugu, Owerri, We have Enugu, Imo states, Anambra states. There are certain areas that are developing that we can see certain infrastructures coming to, and they are opening up in these places. Those places are places that you should be looking at owning properties now, waiting for those properties to appreciate, in the long run. So land banking is one of those investment opportunities that you can put your mind on, and invest into as a diaspora investor. So we have off-plan development, off-plan projects. You have purchase properties under construction at discounts, then sell or rent for profit. So this goes both ways. You can either, develop, or you can either purchase from a developer. So you have a developer who develops maybe terraces, units of terraces, blocks of flats. Is becoming an increasingly popular business model in the real estate market. They tell you, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to sell you a block of flats here for 80 million, but then we're going to spread your payments for 18 months to 24 months, depending on when they say they're going to deliver the projects to you. That's when they're going to complete the project. They're going to say, oh, you don't need to give us 18 million upfront. Probably all you need to deposit is 20 million, and then we'll spread the balance within 12 to 18 months. And you'll be paying your balance in installments as we are developing the property. What this usually does is, because you're not buying the property at the finished stage, off-plan projects are significantly cheaper than already finished projects. Because with already finished projects, the developer used all their money in developing the project. So they are looking at making maximum profits. But with off-plan projects, your money was also used in developing those properties for you, just that it was taken instrumentally, right? So usually the entry point is lower. So this can work for you in the sense that you want a home to live in, you buy off-plan, you give yourself 18 months, you pay up off-plan, and then you own the property for yourself, right? Or you want to sell the property. Sometimes you buy off plan, then you develop the property and then sell the property up. So maybe you bought a property at, I had a client, right, who had an off-plan project. I mean, he bought this off-plan project for about 150 million in Wuye, right? That's at 2023. We bought the off-plan, kid into the off-plan project for about 150 million in Wuye, and within 2023 to 2024, that same property he bought for 150 million off plan is currently selling for 300 million. That's how much you get a terrace in Wuye. You're looking at 270 to 300 million. So that's almost 100% ROI from keying into an off-plan project. This is why off-plan projects are really strategic when it comes to real estate investments. So we have joint venture agreements. Now, this is mostly for people who want to invest into real estate for capital gains. So you want to invest into real estate because you want to make money for yourself, and you want to invest your money into the real estate market for profits. So what happens with joint venture projects is, somebody has a land. You don't need to, if you want to develop a property, you need the land, and then you develop the property on top of the land. But if you buy the land with your money and then develop the property on top the land again, that's too much liquidity going into a project. So what developers or investors do is they look for people who already have bought lands in lucrative places but don't have the money to develop, or don't see the need to develop. They need a developer or someone who is investing in real estate to come and develop this property and sell. Then there is an agreed sharing formula. So let's say the person owns the land, you bring the money to develop maybe let's say a 2,000 square meters land in Katape extension. The person owns the land, you are the developer, you're developing the land, you're developing probably 8 terraces within that particular property. Now, those 8 terraces, maybe you guys are selling in Katape extension, you guys are selling to 280, 300 million. By the time you sell all 8 terraces, then you split it 60-40. Right, so the owner of the land takes 40% of the monies made, the profits of the sale of those terraces, and you take 60%, right? So what happens is, if you are doing 60-40, you're going to take 5 units of terraces the owner of the land is going to take 3 units of terraces, you know. So usually that land would have cost the owner, maybe the value of the land is 400 million. But let's say the owner of the land does a JV agreement and then gets 3 units of terraces and he sells each unit for 280 million, right? So you have 280 million times three. That means he makes 840 million. That's over 2 times what he would have gotten by just selling that land alone. So this is how joint venture agreements work for people who want to invest in real estate, developers, people who feel like they have money and they want to invest in real estate. Joint venture agreements are one of those places or one of those real estate investments that you should look at. We have rentals and shortlet apartments. I've mentioned this before. You can set up a rental property. That means you get a land, you build maybe 6 units of block of flats on the land, and you rent it out. A lot of people frown at rental properties currently because of, I would say, inflation. So most times it looks like the money that you are earning doesn't really make sense because rental properties, you're supposed to expect 5 to 8% or so, returns every year. But currently in Nigeria, because of inflation rates, most rental properties, especially in the city that I'm based in, which is Abuja, you have rental properties yielding as high as 11 to 12%, a year. But one good thing about rental properties is, as an investor who is established, you shouldn't really be concerned about the percentage you get every year from the rental property because one, the property is appreciating. So even if you are renting it out and just making 11% from it every year, the property is also appreciating in the sense that the property in the next few years is going to cost more than it costs today, right? And also you can use that property, as an asset against getting money, a loan from a bank or whatever, and stuff like that, with the property still in place, still appreciating, and still yielding interest. So there's still a lot of value around owning a rental property that a lot of people do not see because they're just looking, oh, I sink in 500 million into building this house and all I get every year is 5% of that. That's not visible, or 10% of that. That's not visible. That's not lucrative. But they forget that the property also appreciates over the year and also they can use that asset as collateral in future investments, which really makes it a good investment, class, depending on where you are as an investor. If you're looking for quick money, or you're not going to be doing rental properties, you're probably going to be doing maybe joint venture agreements. You're going to be doing things like land banking, off-plan projects, and stuff like that. But if you're saying, okay, I just want to have this asset down so that in the future I can use it, as an asset, maybe to get a loan for a business or anything, I can keep it and just let the property appreciate over time, really, and mature in its value and sell it. Off-plan projects is a good thing. Then you have shortlet apartments. Shortlet apartments basically is you setting up an apartment, maybe a 2-bedroom flat, a 3-bedroom flat, a 1-bedroom flat, a 4-bedroom terrace, a fully detached duplex, and then you fully furnish it and you give people for short stays, right? So usually people, maybe you can either buy or rent depending on how much money you have. You can either buy the apartments, buy the house, or rent it. But with shortlet apartments, if for instance you get booked 20 days out of 30 days in a year, and for that you get like 264 bookings in a year, most shortlets people make up to 58 to 60%, profits, based on their investments from shortlets, and that's why you see a lot of people are going into shortlets because it's largely more lucrative. But because it's in the hospitality business, it is more harder to manage, right? It is more harder to manage. That's the problem with shortlet apartments. It's significantly harder to manage. You need somebody on ground who understands their onions, somebody on ground who can manage it, who understands the market and how to get the clients. But if done rightly, this can be an investment in Nigeria that probably takes care of your yearly Nigerian trip, takes care of like your expenses in Nigeria for your family from the proceeds of the shortlet apartment. A lot of you, stay abroad. When you're coming to Nigeria, where do you want to stay? Most people don't want to stay in a hotel again. They want to stay in a shortlet apartments because of the freedom that they have. So it's actually a booming industry and something that you should look onto. Then we have commercial real estate, warehouses, offices, retail spaces are growing, businesses are growing, small businesses are scaling in Nigeria, investing in plazas. It's actually slept on. You can make a lot of money from building up plazas, selling these shop spaces, renting these shop spaces out to people. This can be a consistent flow of income, while also the property appreciates over time. So let's not forget that. Um, What is your advantage as someone in the diaspora investing in Nigerian real estate? What is your advantage? What gives you the edge? What gives you the edge as a diaspora investor? First, I would say it's the exchange rates. What cost 100 million locally may only cost you 50 to 60K. Now, waiting risk higher costs as Naira strengthens. Now, the economy in Nigeria is actually shaky in the sense that Naira is at its all-time high against foreign currencies. But the truth about it is that it's not always going to remain like that because Nigeria is still a young country. Like I said, we still have a lot of years ahead of us. Yes, there's a possibility of things getting worse, but there's also a huge possibility of things stabilizing as the consciousness of this nation grows, right? So you see that this exchange rate, people say smart investors buy at a time where prices are low, where there's a dip, where they can come in at a low entry point. Right now, with your currency, your entry point is considered low because what you make, a Nigerian has to work 100 or 200 times to make that same money here in Nigeria. So that gives you an edge against local investors in the sense that people are investing their naira here, huge sums of naira here, and they are making 200%, 300%, 100%, 150% profits. But imagine investing your own foreign currency here in Nigeria, you get, which is, gives you a slighter edge than the local investor, based on liquidity. And then you are, making those kind of profits that they are making over here. So you have financing assets, when there are different financing, opportunities for people in diaspora. Diaspora investors can access mortgage products from banks like Access, Zenith, Stanbic IBTC Bank, and Federal Mortgage Bank. I learned that there's a mortgage financing options for people in the diaspora. Most of these banks, local banks, can give you details on that, where you can purchase a property on a mortgage, plan from the bank, which helps in financing these properties for you. It's strictly most times for people in diaspora. So this is something that you can look into. Most times in Nigeria, they wouldn't want to give you mortgage options because you're in Nigeria, but because you're abroad, there are mortgage options for you that you can key into to help you own properties cheaper than you would have earned if you were staying in Nigeria. Future building and early advantage. Real estate edges uncertainty and builds family wealth. Any investors can earn up to 200% on development projects. We're talking about wealth creation here. Real estate is one of those outlets that guarantees wealth creation for you as somebody staying in the diaspora. So when you invest in real estate, you're sure that in the next few years, these properties, they're not going anywhere. They're immovable. They're going to be there and they're going to appreciate over time. This gives you what we call an early movers advantage because you're seeing the possibility of growth. Take, for instance, a place like Lagos has already peaked when it comes to real estate. There's really no land to sell anymore. But you're looking at maybe a place like Port Harcourt, a place like Abuja, for instance, there's so much development, there's so much land mass. People are going into different areas and buying lands up, waiting for the population to grow to these areas, right? If you have an advantage to get into the market now. What you'll be doing is you'll be buying up these properties and waiting for these people to come to you when they are ready to buy, and then you sell to them at your price because you are an early mover to this market. So this is something that you cannot take for granted. This is something to look into, this is something to keep at the back of your mind, that this gives you an edge over local investors. So we're looking at costly mistakes to avoid when investing into real estate. So what are the things to avoid as someone staying in the diaspora investing into real estate? Because like I said, are a lot of people have lost their money investing in real estate, especially from the diaspora, because they did not do things the right way. So what are the things to verify? The first thing is title verification. You have to ensure that the land has or the house has the adequate title, the person selling has the adequate title, or there is a trace, from the person buying, to the person that has the original root of title for that particular property. So one of the things you need to ensure is work with a competent lawyer, someone who has experience in real estate, to verify titles, to verify land titles, and to make sure that those lands are genuine before paying your money. There's so much instance of people in the diaspora just paying for properties because my uncle said this property is a good property. I think it's something I should invest in. They don't do any due diligence. They don't do any verification. Sometimes your uncle did not want to cheat you. Your family member, your father did not want to cheat you, but they didn't know better. They don't know how to do due diligence, right? They don't know how to verify if these lands are genuine, right? So they too are a victim in this instance, right? That is why it's always important for you to confirm land titles, And also, if you're buying maybe a property, you make sure that the person that's selling to you has a deed of assignment with probably maybe the person he bought with. There must be a trace to the root of title. That deed of assignment should be purely or should be duly signed and sealed by a legal practitioner so that you know that, okay, this document has a trace. There's a lawyer that I can contact to ask the history of this transaction. Do you understand? There's a person that I can contact to ask the history of this transaction. Do not just send money to somebody because they say there's a property available and you should buy, right? Another thing is to work with trusted partners. Work only with reputable agents and developers with proven track records. For instance, when you're investing into something like off-plan projects, it's important to note that the developers you work with should be developers who have a track record of delivering their projects. So this developer can show you 2, 3, 4 projects that he has delivered as off-plan projects so that you know that the person has the capability to deliver the projects that he is promising you within the time frame that he's promising you. Because even if your money is being contributed into building projects off plan, it's very important for the developer to have all the money to complete the project before he starts selling, right? Because maybe, for instance, he has probably 8 units of block of flats to sell. He seeks probably 5 people who key in off plan, and then 3 people do not key in off plan. If the developer has money, he's not going to be bothered. He's just going to build the whole property. And at the end, those 5 people who key in off plan will have their units. And then he can sell the remaining 3 as fully completed buildings at a higher rate, right? So that's why it's important. These are the things that you need to look at, that, okay, this person I'm working with, can deliver on these projects. If you are working with a real estate agent, work with someone who is experienced in the market, who has knowledge of real estate, who has integrity, who that, okay, has a track record of closing deals, and understands the market. Not just someone who is looking at earning a commission. In Nigeria, everybody's a real estate agent currently now. All of them want commissions. They just tell you anything and lie to you about properties. They'll tell you that the property is, 5 minutes or 10 minutes from the road. By the time you come and see the property yourself, you are driving 60 minutes to 1 hour, 30 minutes to the property. So you have to make sure that the person you're working with has integrity. Another thing is project scrutiny. Investigate projects promising too good to be true prices or delivery timelines. Investigate projects when they are saying, okay, pay, we're going to deliver in 6 months, we're going to deliver in 7 months. Scrutinize those developers. No developer is going to want to put himself under that kind of pressure. Send somebody to inspect the properties, somebody to ask questions, right? You might not be in Nigeria, but you can get in touch with people who can help you, ask the right questions to make sure that your money is not being thrown away, right? We have local oversight and due diligence. Have a trusted representative on the ground and verify all approvals and inspections. So, like I said, make sure that there's somebody on ground that is, make sure there's somebody on ground that is, there to verify, to make sure that everything is okay with all the required agencies, right, that are necessary for the person selling the property to have approvals from before selling those properties. So, what is your investment roadmap? As someone who wants to invest in Nigerian real estate, what is your roadmap into investing in Nigerian real estate? The things you need to do is first, you need to define your goals, right? You have to look and say, what are my goals as an investor? Decide if your focus is income, capital gains, or family use to guide investment type. So if you are looking at, steady income, you are looking at probably shortlet apartments, rental properties. Okay, I just want to have an investment that gives me 15, 20, 25, 30 million a year, you know, just like that, investing in Nigerian real estate. You go for rentals, you go for shortlets. Please give me a second. If you're looking at capital gains, okay, I just want to buy and sell. Like for instance, I had a client last year who bought a a terrace. She bought a carcass terrace for 55 million, right? This terrace cost 55 million by the time she bought it. It was carcass, semi-finished. That means it was just built, but it wasn't like finished painting, screeding, POP, and the rest. She finished the terrace for about 20 million, right? 25 million. She finished the terrace. Let's just say 25 million. So she spent 75 million in finishing that terrace. And then she sold the terrace for 150 million within a 1 year span. So let's say she bought the terrace, she finished the terrace, and she sold the terrace within a 1 year span and made an extra 75 million. That was 100% profit within a 1 year span on her 75 million invested. You get so this is beautiful because, and again, she didn't sell it herself. She didn't do the marketing herself. We did the marketing for her, right? All she did was complete the building and put it on the market. That means she contacted different brokers and told them, okay, I've gotten this investment. This is the price I'm selling. And she finished it super well. The house was fully automated, excellent finishing. It was a very, very good house, right? And should have even sold it more, if not that she got agitated and needed money immediately. It was first listed for 175, but she ended up selling for 150. So she made 75 million naira more on her investments within a 1 year span, right? So this is capital gains playing in action. So you're saying, okay, I don't want to tie my money down for ages. All I want to do is invest in a project, complete the project, exit in a year, invest in a project, complete the project, exit in a year, right? So in this kind of instances, you are looking at, like I said, maybe off-plan projects, or you're looking at developing properties yourself and selling them within a 1 year span. So these are the kind of investments that you are looking for. Right here down in Abuja, this mostly is called flipping properties. So you have people buy properties as carcass level, finish them and sell them as completed units. Most times they do this within a year, 6 months, they are in, they're out, they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out, and they're making massive ROI. If you're looking for family use, maybe you want to have this down for your cousins, for your children, you're looking at probably like buying lands, building rental properties, These are like long-term investments for, building, family wealth and legacy, right? Another thing is to research locations. Now, not all locations are emerging locations. There are certain things that make certain locations emerging. Okay, for instance, in Abuja, right, there's a place called Idu. It wasn't really somewhere to write home about for most times for the years, like a local settlement. But all of a sudden, there was the Idu train station was developed in that area. And that area opened up because of the Idu train station, right? Developers started buying land, selling estate plots around there, using the train station as a promised, development or a major capital project that was going to bring development to Idu, right? So you have the train station. Now the government made a part of Idu an industrial area. They moved certain government agencies like Nasini to Idu, and all of a sudden Idu has opened up. Currently, Idu had nothing, was nothing to write home about 4 years, 5 years ago, but it is more prominent than old areas like Gwagalada and Yanya, and Karu in Abuja currently. Plots of land go way more higher in Idu than they go in these areas, like I said, Karu, Gwagalada, and the rest. And that is simple. Idu is closer to town than these areas. But like I said, a few years ago, it was nothing to write home about. It was just large bush expanse of land. But because of the location or the putting of a capital project in that particular place, Ido has opened up for investment and is now a prime location for investment in Nigeria, right? Um, like I said, work with credible partners, engage trustworthy developers, agents, and lawyers, use escrow or milestone payments. So, for instance, you have maybe like a trusted agent receive the money from you before the money goes to the person that's buying the property or you're buying the property from, so that you don't send all the money to the person without doing necessary documentations, before the property passes to you. You get so inspect and plan long term, visit personally or send trusted representative, avoid quick gains. Real estate requires patience. So real estate is not a get rich quick scheme. It's one of those things that that you invest in long term, right? It's one of those things you invest in long term, and you know that in a few years, right, this particular investment is going to be worth it, right? And it's not something that you're looking at saying, oh, I'm going to blow from here. Yes, you're going to make money, but it requires patience, it requires skill, it requires you making the right choices. It is certainly not a get rich quick scheme, but it is a way to invest your money rightly. It is a safe asset investment that, if done rightly, you are almost sure that your money is not going to get missing, and that your money is going to give you back value, right? Success stories from diaspora investors. We have Melody. Melody stays in Germany. She purchased, land in Abuja for 12 million, 500 square meters for 12 million, and an estate in December 2024, just last year. Now worth over 21.6 million in 5 months and 80% ROI. So this is a particular estate that is ongoing and selling. She purchased a 500 square meters land for 12 million, and this year that land is already worth 21.6 million, right here in Abuja, right? I think Hutupol and Golf Resorts is the name of the estate. So there is Chinonso off-plan projects invested 150 million in Wuye in 2023. Upon completion in 2024, unit sell for 300 million, doubling the investments. So these are success stories from people who have done investments, in Nigerian real estate and the returns that they have gotten, right? Not everybody is investing for money, like I said. Some people are just investing to have these properties long term, which is also a good idea. Like we said, real estate is a mandate from God and is important for wealth creation, right? Why you should act now. Why you should act now. So, Nigerian real estate offers huge opportunities for wise investors. You're not just buying property, you're investing in your roots, your family's future, and a growing economy. If you need guidance, feel free to reach out to me personally for free consultation calls. So, like I said, real estate offers huge opportunities. The wise invest in real estate for the future rather than eat the money for the now, right? So, if you're investing in Nigerian real estate, you're not just throwing away money, you're investing in your roots, you're investing in a safety net, you're also investing in an emerging, growing economy. Imagine those people who invested in Dubai 10, 15 years ago and what their investments look like today. Yes, Dubai is on a different trajectory than Nigeria, but Nigeria still has a lot of opportunities to become a global phenomenon. So, as much as we're facing challenges like as a nation, as many other nations face, this is also a good place for you to invest part of your money, just to make sure that you're also a part of the boom in Nigeria. Like I said, based on Nigerian GDP rebasing that happened this year, real estate just overtook oil and gas as the third largest sector in the Nigerian economy, contributing to the Nigerian GDP. So this makes real estate a prime investment. This is the time to invest in real estate. If you're looking for a business in Nigeria that you can say, oh, I invest my money is mostly going to be safe and I'm going to have returns on investment, then you have to be thinking real estate investments. So I think this is the final slide for this webinar. Let me see. So I think the floor is open to ask questions. You can either maybe you can just ask the questions directly and let's just have a discussion maybe for the next 5-10 minutes. Maybe you have a question from the slide, something you would like me to, clarify on, and then we can come to a close.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
I've been listening to the webinar. I'm
Okay.
waiting for you to present um your property that you want to sell and the payment plan, and probably focus more on the property. Probably if you can give us some designs for us to see.
Okay, like you're saying properties that are for sale, right?
Yeah,
Um, okay. So this was majorly supposed to be like a real estate investment class. Like you see, I really majored on, how you can invest in real estate, and how this can bring, you money and stuff like that, and like the different investments, categories. So I think I'll just present maybe one or two properties and just talk to you about them. But like anybody who also wants to like, get maybe any other kind of property can always like reach out to me. You get after now, I think Mr. Big Sam has my WhatsApp contacts and then we can talk about it. But majorly I have properties in Abuja, right? There are also properties in Lagos, in Enugu. I actually can get properties for clients anywhere in Nigeria, right? But I base in Abuja, so like one of the places I have a real foothold is in Abuja. But I also work with like business colleagues in Lagos, in Enugu, in Port Harcourt, Delta, Asaba, and the likes. So for Abuja, we have lands currently. There's one project that I'm really two projects that I'm really like enthusiastic about at the moment. I'm coming. Let me see if I can. Give me a second, please. So um I'm trying to present.
So as you're looking for the other one,
So we
oh,
have Solaris Courts. This is a project in Abuja, is in Life Camp Abuja, right? So this project has Solaris Court. It's a mini estate, about 12 hectares. It's in a estate. This is like a phase three project in an estate that's already developed in Life Camp Abuja. I think over like 60% developed. So there's already houses and infrastructures. People are living in the estates currently. So you have 150 square meters for 14 million, 200 square meters for 18.5 million, 300 square meters for 28 million, 450 square meters for 42 million, and 750 square meters for 70 million. So we also have Hutu Polo and Golf Resorts.
Sorry,
Um,
Odinlo, sorry. When you mention all this 150 square meter and the rest, what does it entail on
okay,
plots, a
okay, okay,
plot of
okay.
land?
Okay. So when I say 150 square meters, that's I'll just mention the kind of houses that you can build on these different land sizes. So if you have 150 square meters, you can build a 3 bedroom terrace duplex. Just a small 3 bedroom terrace duplex with an attached BQ at the back that has a parking space for 2 cars. Then with 200 square meters, you can build, this is, I think, for a 4 bedroom semi-detached duplex. This is like two duplexes joined together, like twin duplexes. So you have your own side, your other person has his own side. With terraces, it's usually like 5 to 6 units of terrace duplexes joined together. That's the one that's 150 square meters. So with the 300 square meters is for a 4 bedroom fully detached duplex. This is less, it's slightly less than half a plot, right? Then we have 450 square meters, which is for a 5 bedroom fully detached duplex. That means you're having all the space all to yourself, just like the 4 bedroom fully detached duplex. And then we have 750 square meters for those looking at building blocks of flats. So you just want blocks of flats. You have 750 square meters for 70 million. So this place is actually like a highbrow area in Abuja. So it's like in the phase three of development in Abuja. So it's kind of pricey because it's really close to town in a sense, right? But I have other locations like, let's say, Hutu. For Hutu, we have, let me see if I can share this with the screen. Um, Comment, please.
so what's the payment plan for the Solaris courts?
You have 3 to 6 months. So you have 3 to 6 months for that particular land, right? So you can pay within 3 months. 3 months, no interest. 6 months attracts like 5% interest, right, on the monies that you pay. So if you're doing a 6 month payment plan, you might have to pay like an extra 5% on top, the actual price because we're spreading it for 6 months, right? So we have also Hutu, Hutu Polo and Golf Estate. So this is a development project. It's one of Abuja's biggest real estate projects happening currently right now, FCD approved. It's a polo estate in Abuja. So the whole idea is it's about 100, no, it's about 230 something hectares of land, and about 10 hectares have been set aside for recreational activities. So in this estate, you're going to be having a golf course, you're going to be having a polo, club, you're going to be having a hotel resort, a small amusement park for kids, and so some of these other recreational activities like a tennis court, a football pitch, a basketball court, good roads, and some other amenities that are going to be in this particular estate. So for this estate, this is a bit cheaper. 150 square meters is 6.4 million. This is for 3 bedroom terrace. 250 square meters is 10.8 million, which is for a 4 bedroom semi-detached duplex. You have 350 square meters for 15.12 million, which is for a 4 bedroom fully detached duplex. That's just you in your own compound. You have your four corner compound space, just you. We have 500 square meters for a 5 bedroom fully detached duplex. That's for 21.6 million. With a 500 square meters land, you can have your house, an attached BQ, and probably like a pool in the back, a small pool in the back. You can do that with a 500 square meters land. Then you have 1,000 square meters. This 1,000 square meters is for block of flats. So you have 6 units of block of flats, and it's for 43.2 million naira. That's how much this particular land costs. This one, you can buy it and say, okay, I'm keeping it because I want to build bulk of flats in the future for people to live in this particular estate. It's actually a very, very good investment opportunity. So these are the different square meters that we actually have when it comes to land. There are other properties. We have lands in Kuje for as cheap as 2 million. 2 million for a plot for 250 square meters. I think there's 350 square meters. Just give me a second. I don't have the flyer, but I have the flyer on my phone. So I can just give you the prices for those ones. And any other person who maybe wants to know about more properties, maybe somewhere else like, Enugu, Lagos, or whatever, can reach out personally for that information. So you have 250 square meters for 1.8 million, 350 square meters for 2.5 million, 450 square meters. The 350 square meters for a 3-bedroom fully detached bungalow. The 250 square meters is for a 2-bedroom semi-detached bungalow. 450 square meters for a 4-bedroom fully detached bungalow for 3.4 million. You have 550 square meters for a 5-bedroom fully developed or detached bungalow with a penthouse. These bungalows that have a small penthouse on it. It's for 550 million for 4 million naira, and you have 1,000 square meters for 2-bedroom, fully 6 units of 2-bedroom flats for 7.5 million. This is more of like a land banking opportunity because though the area is not bad, but it's like a developing area, right? That's like a place where you are saying, oh, development is going to come there in the next 3, 4, 5 years. That's for the one in Kuje, because Kuje is like a developing area in Abuja. But the ones for Hutu and Solaris Courts are already in developed area. For Hutu, it's located before, just like 10 minutes after the Abuja airport on the way to the town, just on that Lugbe Expressway. That's where Hutu and Polo and Golf Resorts is. Solaris Court is at Life Camp, which is a well-known area in Abuja, just after Mabushi, sharing borders with Kado and Jahi. So that's a very established area in Abuja that you can live in. That is a very good place to live in. So these are some of the properties that are available currently in Abuja.
So there's a question in the chat, and the person is asking, if you buy this very estate, are you going to have a C of O for it?
Okay, so in the way lands are in Abuja is most estates in Abuja have what you call global C of O, right? Or global arrow of O, right? So what happens is the developer has an arrow of O or a C of O for the entire estate. So let's say the estate is 200 or 230 square meters. There's only one C of O for that entire land, right? So everybody who buys, buys under that one C of O or arrow of O. Then when you buy from the developer gives you what is called an offer letter, gives you an allocation letter allocating your exact plots to you. And then the developer gives you a deed of assignment between you and them, showing that, okay, I bought this particular land size from this developer for this particular reason at this particular price. So those are the kind of documents you get as your title documents in this scenario, because there's just one C of O for the entire estate. But what you do before buying such is that you go to the land registry and probably do a search with that one C of O to see, okay, is there any court case on this particular land? Has anybody registered any power of attorney on this particular land that doesn't reflect the developer? Then you ask questions onto how the developer came into the land. Okay, did they buy the land from the original allottee on the C of O or the arrow of O of the land? If they did, maybe you ask for the deed of assignments between the developer and the original allottee. Most times you can cite those in their offices, and then if you have done all due diligence, you go ahead and buy the land. But for all these lands I've presented, I've done all the due diligence on them, and I can assure that they are 100% free from any like legal problems or stuff like that, and they are good to go.
I have a question. You mentioned the property in Kuje. I wanted to ask, like, what is the average cost of house rent presently now in Kuje?
Kuje is a relatively cheap area. So maybe like you're saying, maybe like a 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom flat in Kuje, yeah, you're looking at probably like 2 million, 2.5 million, 1.5 million thereabouts. In Kuje, you might even see like a 2 bedroom for maybe like 750, you know, 1 million in Kuje now, depending on the side of Kuje that you get, because, Kuje has two different sides. He has like the really developed side that's like a GRA, then he also has like the Kuje village side because it's a local old Abuja settlement, right? So, yeah, so this particular land is in the GRA side that is developed, that has like estates springing up and developers building. But like I said, it's not a place where you're saying, oh, I'm investing in now and I'm going to have like returns now, like even in the next 1 year. It's something that you're investing in now and you're probably giving like 3 to 5 years for that particular investment to mature, in the sense that more people are moving into those areas and like the area is opening up. But it's also a place that has like huge potential because they are currently developing a road from Kuje to Gwagalada to Airport Road, a very big, massive lane. So it's opening up Kuje. There are other settlements in Kuje, like there's a resort, Almat Farms is in Kuje. There's a school, Philomath University is also based in Kuje. So Kuje has some really nice developments coming up, which is opening up the area.
So there's a follow-up to the CFO question, and it's saying, thanks for the kind response. Please, if there is any issue whatsoever and the government or a change in plans and design of the area, I think, how will an investor get out of it? Or will they depend on the developer and solely on his mercy? So I think what this
Okay.
question is, okay, you understand, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand the question. Okay, let's say you people bought a land, you bought a land from a developer. The developer told you that everything is okay with this land. In the next 5 years, government comes and says they are relocating that land to somebody, which happens a lot in somewhere like Abuja, especially like maybe if the person has like a weak title, right? This is not like an in-depth investment class, so I can't start going into like different titles and their strengths, and stuff like that. But like I said, I'm always here to like answer questions privately, if you have like an investment that you want to make. But most times in this kind of situation, to be honest, this is what happened to like even my family members. Their money went, right? Because most developers will tell you that, oh, that they also invested into the property. When they bought it, the title was good, but then government has come to take the property and there's nothing that they can do about it. But on the other hand, that's why it's important the kind of developers you are working with. Because, like, for me personally, the kind of developers I work with are developers that even if they encounter a problem with an estate, and something happens to the estate, right? Most times they just relocate everybody into a new property. You get, because they are trying to keep their integrity and save face. But say you're not working like with a developer that has this level of integrity. To be honest, what it means is that your money has gone. There's nobody that you can sue, and stuff like that. But this doesn't mean that all investments are volatile, right? Because there are certain titles. Maybe like if you buy in Abuja, if you buy a land now that has an FCDA arrow of O or C of O, you can be sure that nothing is going to happen to that land even in the next 50 years, because the land has been allocated, the land is in their system, you understand? They recognize the land, they were the ones that allocated the land, so they know that this land is good, But maybe if you are buying the land from like a local government, so what he has is local government papers. The Supreme Court has decided that local governments do not have the authority to allocate lands per se, right? So except local government lands that have been recertified, and some of them have not been. You see developers, lands that they allocated in 1980, 1990, local government lands that they have not recertified with ages, right? They still sell these properties to people. When a government minister like probably Wike comes on board, he just looks and says, oh, which place in Abuja are they lands that are not SCDA allocated? Then he allocates maybe like 5 hectares, 10 hectares there of people's lands that have already been bought by investors who did not know a few years back, and everybody loses their money. So there's really nothing much you can do about that situation except making sure years, right? And this goes to any area in Nigeria you're buying from. Enugu has his own land system. Lagos has his own land system. For Lagos, you have to make sure that they have governor's consent and that they have the right building approval, approved, by the government for them to build that particular structure there before you invest in those particular places.
Okay, thank you for the response. There's another question, and this one goes that please, can you describe the landmark or how accessible the roads are to the estate on Airport Road and Life Camp currently? Is it motorable?
Yes, for Life Camp down to the gates of where this particular land is starred, like from the entrance of Life Camp to the gate of the estate is starred. And apart from that, the place it's not like it's bush surrounding it, right? Inside the estate where the 12 hectares is, yes, is like bush, but all around that place, because where the estate is about 45 hectares. Out of that 45 hectares, we already have about 30 hectares occupied, or about more than 30 hectares, probably like 30, 35 hectares or so occupied already, around that range. So then there's the land. Beside it is NNPC estates. Just another to the other side is So Estate, which is occupied. There's also Paradise 2, which is occupied. So there's Ochacho Estate. All those estates are occupied estates. So it's not, Life Camp is like a place that you say you are buying and within 2 years you have completed your building and you have moved into your estates. That's like for Life Camp. So it's more like a buy and build land. But then you have Hutu. Hutu is also of that caliber. There's about a 6 to 7 minutes drive from the road to the land, right? I don't think I have drone shots here. I don't think I have drone shots here. Okay, I have a video of how Hutu is. Let me see if I can play and share my screen. Just a short video of Hutu so that you can see for yourself. Oh, I've not gotten VLC here. I don't think this will play. I doubt. Okay.
I'm sure you wonder what we are up to. Meet my very good and new friend, Putu. We're here to introduce our new project, Africa's first polo and golf resort estate right here in Abuja. It's a first of its kind and a kind of its first. Guess what? It's just 10 minutes away from the airport and 20 seconds away from your bank account. Pardon, 20 minutes away from the city center with great amenities like 18-hole golf course, a ranch, infinity pool, and for those who like exclusivity, luxury, you get first-hand information on any event that is going to be happening here. With our land sizes ranging from 150 square meters to 1,000 square meters, a payable amount of 5.4 million.
So that's when the price was 5.4.
Easy. Knowing we're part of history, what's stopping you from joining us?
So that's the video for Hutu. It's like you can see you can see the expanse of land, right? It just even at where the land is, there are already like buildings, some other mini estates to the side. It has like a 7 minutes drive from the main roads to the gate of the estate. It's not hard, to be honest, But on these projects, there are some of Abuja's biggest developers on the project. Like I said, it's a big project, about 230 something hectares. So the road will be done from the gate of the estate to the main road. It will be made roadable, motorable, graded, and possibly tarred to the main road, right? Hutu is also a land that you can buy and probably start building by I'd say towards like the end of the year, probably like towards like October or so. I'm just putting that as worst case scenario, like all the necessary approvals for building approvals are out and stuff like that. Let's say by October you can start building. And a lot of people who are also keen into this project are also like serious people. So a lot of people will start building once everybody can move to site on this particular project. So you can say for something like Hutu, by 3 to 4 years, it's going to be ready for people to start living in the estates.
Okay, thank you once again for the question. And there's another one that seems very popular. So the question goes, please, I'd like to know, after purchasing the land, if they have duration that you must develop, because these are some of the things the developers don't disclose later, and later they will start threatening, I think.
Okay, so the problem now is with somewhere like Abuja, right? There is a dilemma to some extent, right? Wike just announced that anybody who buys a land has to start developing within 2 years of buying that land. I'm sure this is not going to apply to everywhere, but places that are close to town, developers will be forced to get their persons to start doing something. You don't need to complete the building. Maybe you do foundation, build it to lintel level. Just make sure that there's an appurtenance on the land that shows that, okay, there's development. So I can't say, because prior before now, developers will not stress you. They'll just sell the land. Sometimes people, 5 years, they've not done anything there. The land is just there. They know that this is their land. They are waiting, people will be waiting for the first person to put block. So them too, they will start their own block. But I'm sure it's not going to be like that anymore, because once government starts going to people's lands and saying, okay, people have not developed, if something doesn't happen in the next 3 to 6 months, we'll revoke your C of O, your R of O. A lot of developers will ask people to say, do something in your land, though. So it looks like maybe it puts people under pressure, but it's also good for the business, because there's currently a housing deficit in Nigeria. Like I said, we need more houses, and it also helps if these estates come up rapidly so that more estates can also spring up. So like I said, some of maybe it's that Kuje project, and nobody's going to disturb you to build even in the next 4 or 5 years. Nobody's going to pressure you. But something like Hutu, within a year or so, I'm sure developers will start saying, okay, please try and do something. And what usually even happens is, if they allocate you a plot that is in a good place, maybe close to the gates, in a good location, if they keep it for some time and you have not done anything on it, somebody who is ready to build will come and say, I'm ready to build, my plot is far. Please reallocate me to the front so that I can start building immediately. What will happen is, usually is in all those allocation letter terms and conditions, the developers will just reallocate you to another plot, which is at the area where development has not started. So these things will happen. It's not like they will revoke your plot if you don't build immediately, but these are like some of the things that come into mind when buying these properties.
So Barrister, there's no other question. So I would want to use this opportunity to thank you for the session. It's been a wonderful one. And I would like to ask you if you have any final words for us, so that we can round up and close.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank the Igbo community for the opportunity to share this particular knowledge with you. I do not take this for granted. Also, an Igbo person, from Imo State, this is really, really dear to me to share this kind of information with my people. I really am appreciative of the opportunity. I'd also like to encourage everyone here, right, to invest into real estate. Some of the things that I just shared with you, you don't have to pay 100%. You can start 50%, 30%, 40%, 50%, and spread the balance between 3 to 6 months, depending on which projects you are going for. You can also buy houses, flats, and just have something in your own country that you can say, oh, I have this in Nigeria and this is my property. It's very important. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Like I said, if you want to ask me questions personally, you can ask for my contact and reach me on WhatsApp, and I'll be so happy to help you out to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you so much. And we hope we can get your contact from Big Sam. And if you have like some of those flyers you shared in the meeting today that you feel might interest the community, you can also
Okay.
send to him so that we can actually share among our group in our group chat also.
Okay, so I'll also do that. I put my contact on the chat box, but like anybody can also ask Big Sam for my contact, and
Okay.
I'll also share him the flyers so that you can have the flyers if you're interested.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate. On behalf of the Igbo community in Estonia, we say thank you for this, for taking your time to actually be with us today. It's not always an easy to get people to, dedicate their over an hour to sit and talk about these things. So, but we really appreciate and we say thank you once again.
No
Thank you.
problem. I hope to, work with you guys again sometime, teach anytime you want to talk about real estate, I'm available.
All right. Thank you so much. So everyone, thank you for joining. I think we have to end the meeting right now. So see you guys on the next one.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time and see you another time.
Oh, thank you, Sir Aaron. I really appreciate it.